Hey folks, welcome back to the Mac and Mike show. If you're wondering, Mac and Mike are kind of like Dutch twins because we both have very similar shirts on today. There was no planning that went into that. That was just happenstance, I guess. I ordered some shirts on the internet, and one of the shirts was a little bit small and tight for me, so I gifted it to my good buddy, my brother Mike. So, anyways, today we're going to talk about what I think is interesting, and we're probably going to kind of bounce around some ideas that are kind of related to it. But what I asked Mike this morning was a very simple question. Recently, we had these immigrants, these illegal immigrants who have been forced to leave this country. Some of them have been adjudicated in court, some of them have not because they already had detainers issued for deportation of the country. Some have been decades old, you know, crimes committed, and they had they'd already been to court and been ordered out of the country. And what we saw was, and what we continue to see, are many people of the progressive um, point of view. I mean, just wringing their hands and running all over the country saying, oh, this is the terrible thing, how bad this is. We need to give these people their rights. They need to have their day in court. Their rights are being violated. Now, I could argue that as an illegal immigrant, they don't have any constitutional rights. They have no legal status in this country, and therefore they have no constitutional rights. But how many times do we hear about the Maryland father? I mean, we had Democrats flying down to whatever South American country they were being detained in, they were flown to, and so they get their picture taken with this. Now, the question that I want to ask you is all this wailing and gnashing of teeth that's going on the left side of the aisle, the progressive side of the progressive perspective, about their rights are being violated and their rights need to be protected, and they need to their right to a speedy trial, their right to a trial by jury, all of these kinds of things are being violated. Here's the question I have for you. What about the hundreds of people that were arrested January 6th for the so-called, quote, insurrection, unquote? And they were thrown into a District of Columbia jail without an attorney, without a court date, sometimes for months on end. Where were those bleeding heart liberals trying to protect the rights of those people, Mike? Did they get the same consideration?
No, absolutely not. And you add to that, one of the things I hear when you listen to the other side, which I try to do, they talk about, human rights, if not civil rights. And I say, okay, but everything has a pecking order. So if you've experienced this and you've told me about this, you go to the hospital, to the emergency room with your dad, and the place is just filled with illegal immigrants and people that can't even speak English. And your dad is put on the back burner because there's so many people, our ERs are overwhelmed. You send your kids to school, and in a lot of places, a lot of the kids can't speak English. They're holding all the other students back that might get a better education because you have kids that can't speak the language. I went through that as a kid in New York City. But what they did there is I had a girlfriend. She was from Romania. She's in my sixth grade class and she's 14 years old, right? And I'm like 11. And, her two other sisters were in a similar situation. They were held back. But, we faced this issue, but it's just gotten out of control. And just recently in the news, they're talking about the big, beautiful bill again and how it's going to hurt all these people on Medicaid and Medicare and yada, yada, yada. And they're just pointing out no, they're going to stop giving it to illegal immigrants so that we can pull that money back and give it to our own citizens that are in need of it. And recently, Trump took the money that they were giving to illegal immigrants away, and he's going to fix up a veteran center out in Los Angeles that's going to help thousands of homeless vets. And that's the kind of priority that we should have in this country.
Mike, you mentioned my father's visit to the emergency room, and I want to say this. My father is a veteran of the Navy in World War II. My father is a veteran of the Army in Korea. He has a Purple Heart and he has a Bronze Star with V device for valor. He has a commendation ribbon. He has so many awards for bravery in the military. And when he was put on the back burner and he was, quote, writhing in pain in the emergency room, and I got a hold of a nurse assistant, and the nurse assistant said, "Well, we have other people in front of him." I said, "My father is a veteran and an absolute hero of the American Army." I said, "He should get priority service." And the guy looks at me and he says, "Can I get you a blanket?" No, 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 you can't get me a blanket. You can get my father in to see the doctor, is what you can do for me.
Hmm.
And, I don't know how many people in that emergency room had insurance. I don't know how many people in that emergency room were paying for their visit, but based on their language and their circumstance, I believe a lot of those people receiving benefits from that emergency room were charity cases. Now, I don't mean that in the negative way that it sounds. I'm just saying that if somebody is getting something for nothing and they have to wait an extra 20 minutes because the guy that has, you know, Medicare that he earned and paid into for 60 years and 43 years in the military, so he has TRICARE. And yes, because I even called the patient advocate at the hospital. I said, "I want you to get this. My father's in tremendous pain. He needs to see somebody." And she says to me, "Are you saying your father should get priority service because he's a veteran?" I said, "You're damn right I'm telling you that." Well, they eventually got him in there pretty quick once I made a big deal about it. But my point is that, you know, I don't hate anyone and I don't want to withhold service from anyone. But I do believe that there are people who through their service, through their own actions, they've earned that right to take the front row seat or to take the place at the head of the line. They just do. And I don't want that for myself, but I want it for my dad, you know? So anyways, I don't mean to beat that up. I didn't mean to bring that
Oh
up. You're
no,
kind
no,
of
I brought it
adding
up
to
for that very reason, and it's good to be passionate about it. And I had to explain this to a person in my family who dislikes Trump severely. I said, "Look, if I run into an illegal immigrant personally, and that person is in need, I'm going to treat them decently. I'm not going to treat them like a redheaded stepchild. But if I have to choose between my kids, my grandkids, my neighbor, and an illegal immigrant, and they all equally need me, I'm going to prioritize my own family first, then my neighbors, then extend out. And we wouldn't have this problem if it wasn't for the uncontrolled, unvetted release of all these people into
yes,
our countries, which
yes.
now, everybody's claiming, oh, we don't want to investigate this. And the senators walked out of the hearing on Joe Biden's competency because these issues are going to come up. Like, who made the decision to say the border is secure? The border is secure. And everybody knew it wasn't, but somebody knew because the numbers were there.
My father got shot while he was saving the life of a soldier who was wounded in battle. He left his protected area where he was safe from being shot, and he went to save the life of a man who had been shot and was lying on the ground screaming, "I've been hit, I've been hit." And my father, as he was putting this individual on a litter and taking him back to the aid station, got shot during that period of time. It just so happens that that soldier who was lying on the ground, that my father, whose life he saved, was an African American soldier. So I don't, there shouldn't be any extra credit for saving a black man's life as saving any other. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that my father's action, without regard to any sort of racial consideration, in today's world, might not might be considered differently than. But here's the problem with what you just said. Do you remember the guy, the member of Congress who pulled the fire alarm rather than allow a vote
Yeah,
to happen that he didn't want? Did anything happen? Anything bad happen to that guy?
just a censure or something.
Okay. Do you remember the story here a week or so ago where the guy who was a member of Congress goes into an immigration
Hmm.
an ICE briefing and starts disrupting the proceedings, and the FBI or
Secret Service.
whatever protection group was there escorted the man out of the room, put him down on the ground, put handcuffs on him, and escorted him out of the room. Now, he was not wearing his identification as a member of Congress, although he claimed to be one. Each member of Congress has a little badge that they wear to identify them. Only those people get them. I don't know if you know this. When the underground trams run, there's certain times when only those people that have those badges on can get on those underground. So he didn't follow any set of rules or protocol. He busted into this thing, claiming he was a member of Congress without the proper credentials, and then was detained, handcuffed, and taken away. And he cried about it. He literally cried tears when he got in
Yeah.
front of the cameras
How
to say how he was mistreated.
those weren't real tears.
No, 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 weren't real tears, Mike. But my point is that there's a right way and a wrong way to do those
Mhm.
kinds of things. And obviously, he knew the right way and he chose not to utilize the quote right way. And then he wants to get extra credit or points because of what happened to him was so terrible. Now let's again
It's a
putting
fundraising stunt.
putting this into context. As we were watching television earlier, we saw a clip from The View where one person said, do you know that women in Iran are treated horribly and they have a horrible existence? And Whoopi Goldberg quickly jumped in and said, but you don't know what the African American or the black experience in America is. We tie black people to the back bumpers of vehicles and drag them through the streets. Now, I think vaguely I do remember a crime
That
in
happened.
Texas
Yep, that
that
happened.
somebody was dragged behind a
Mhm.
truck, but it's not a daily happenstance.
I know.
And for Whoopi Goldberg to, as an African American woman, to claim that this kind of thing happens daily in America, like women are mistreated in Iran happens daily, that is absolutely ridiculous. And I think the person who is treated badly in that exchange is Whoopi Goldberg, who claims this absolutely ludicrous position that all black people live in fear of being dragged behind a vehicle every day in America. Now, you and I both know that's not true.
No.
I
Eh,
mean, everybody watching knows that's not true.
Right. And
And yet, what bad happens to her for that miscommunication, that dubious claim?
yeah, nothing. And I said I wouldn't even know about the television show called The View if it wasn't brought up on Fox News so much. And of course, Gutfeld likes to have so much fun with them. And that's true about a lot of things. I mean, if it wasn't brought up on Fox News, I wouldn't even know these crazy leftists exist. And so they're giving them more airtime than they can get naturally. And the shame of it is, I'm sure people out there do know what that show is, and some watch it. I think we have what an average of 20% of Americans that are absolutely insane on the left,
I
and
don't know the
maybe
answer to that.
10% on the right.
I don't know the
I
stats.
think it's 20% insanity on the left and maybe 10% on the right. But yeah, it's no critical thinking skills. People don't stop and think. There's a good book, by the way, if you want to read it out there. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. It explains a lot of things. Not, it doesn't talk about politics. It's just the way we think. And people that are emotional, they use system one thinking. It's just jump to the conclusion. They don't have any conversation in their own head. Should I say this? They don't ever ask themselves that question.
Well, I think, Mike, that there is a disconnect in American society today when we have these riots going on. L.A. had a immigration and what's ICE stand for? Immigration
Customs enforcement.
um, they had these ICE raids where they arrested several people who, without question, had violated the law. Some people were here illegally. Some people they arrested were violated the law by giving these illegal immigrants credentials so that to help them violate the law.
Hmm.
Um, and from that, these people rose up and started burning vehicles in the street, breaking into storefronts, and they were carrying the Mexican flag, many of them, as they were doing these riots. And what I think is so beautiful, no, not beautiful. There's nothing beautiful about that. Ironic is the word I was looking for. Right now, today, as you and I sit here, there are riots in the streets of Mexico where Mexican citizens are rioting and protesting against illegal immigrants from South America that are coming into Mexico. And you you can't make this stuff up. These riots that are going on in Mexico are Mexicans saying they don't want South Americans to be in their country and leeching off their tax dollars and their society, off their largesse, you know.
Right.
And I think that when we see people in America doing those protests, it strikes me the contrast with the protest that what the people, the progressives and people on the left call the insurrection of January 6th. You know, we had some people go break into the Capitol. Some of them broke windows to get in. Others just walked through open doors. I mean, there wasn't an act of violence that got them into the Capitol. By the time they got there, the doors were open. They went inside to see what was going on. But there are people who literally spent months in prison without legal representation, without a speedy trial, without a court date. And yet we have people on television describing these riots where cars are being overturned and burned, where police are being bricks are being thrown at them and they're being spray painted and all kinds of being spit on, all kinds of despicable practices. And yet these people on the TV news are saying these are mostly peaceful protests. And you can see in the background where they're not peaceful at all. Contrast that with the actions on January 6th and the January 6th protests, whatever you want to call them, they truly were mostly peaceful, okay? And I don't know how you fix that, because if you can't trust your news media, who can you trust?
Wow. So we're getting, I mean, that touches so many different things. I told you that this Sunday I'm going to be on a Zoom with a friend of mine's son, and my friend's a conspiracy theorist, and the son holds some positions. And the number one cited thing is lack of trust in our government and our media. And that's why people hold all these crazy conspiracy theories. Now, a lot of the crazy conspiracy theories, too, have proven out to be true.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you look at the hoaxes, like Trump's a Russian agent. No, he's not. None of that was ever true. But we spent 2, 3 years on it, and how many investigations? So, I mean, I can't blame people that believe some nutty things from having some justification, at least in their own mind, as to why they believe it. But that's why I said, to me, the truth is so important, because it leads to all kinds of unraveling of society. And are you going to trust somebody that lied to you?
No.
No. It's easy to lose people's trust. And running the Vets for Trump website, I was always very careful. I was surprised. Oh, by the way, I looked up what Grok has to say about it. I'm a slanted person,
Oh, are
but
you?
but that's really crazy. And it's true that I defend Trump without promoting the other side, but the name Vets for Trump means Vets for Trump, not Vets against Trump. So my job has been to defend against false accusations. So to the Grok AI, it seems like I'm a one-sided person, but I had to understand the other side in order to be able to combat it. Anyhow, I don't know where I was going with that, except that the truth is the truth. We've had videos on that before. We've discussed
Mm-hmm.
the truth. We may not always know exactly what it is, but it exists.
It does exist. It
Yeah.
always exists. And the point, Mike, behind that is that when I was a young man, I believed what I saw on TV. When Walter Cronkite said, and that's the way it is, I believed that's the way it was.
Right?
And when our government said something, I believed it. I believed that was accurate. And at this advanced stage, I'm at the point now where I find it difficult to believe anything from anyone. And that's a terrible position to be in, because
Yes.
being able to have a civilized society is based on acceptance of truth from other sources, even from one another.
Right.
When you're talking individual to individual, you believe, you want to believe, you in order for you to come to agreement or to debate disagreement, you have to understand and accept and know what the truth is. And today, what were we talking about earlier? I told you about somebody that resigned from the CDC.
Oh yeah.
And a trusted source that I had read previously said that this woman was resigning from the CDC because of her concern about the many um, COVID vaccinations that have been given out. And when we used Grok to do some deep diving into that, we found out that she was really resigning because of RFK. The new head of her department was saying that um, we need to reduce the number of vaccines that children get for their safety. And she was resigning in protest because the government was not endorsing as many vaccines as they once had, which is a completely different story, maybe not diametrically opposed, but certainly a different perspective on why she was resigning.
Hmm.
We have to know the truth. We
Right.
have to. We have to get to the truth so that we can debate from, you can debate any issue, and you can either agree or continue to disagree. But if you're incapable or unwilling to accept what the truth is, there's really no position, no starting point for your debate.
Right. Right. And that's where I get with like my buddy Brent. There's just absolutely no reason. I can show him alternate points of view. He feels like I'm trying to convince him I'm right. I'm saying no. Just consider both points of view. The first thing I learned in debate was you have to be able to debate both sides of the issue. So you have to have, information, good information from both sides. And this is what's lacking, even on Fox News, which is my favorite news station. It doesn't occur as much, but here is like the show The Five. They have one panelist that's usually a leftist or, a moderate Democrat, somebody from the other side. And they end up shouting this person down most of the time. Well, Jessica Tarlov, they shout down. Harold Ford Jr., they typically allow him to speak because he is so moderate. But, that's the thing. You need to listen to the good arguments from the other side. And sometimes the other side makes good arguments, and you have to just admit, okay, that's a good argument, but here's why that doesn't work. I mean, the argument's true. Like, for example, AOC, college tuition is too high. We all agree college tuition is too high. It's how do you fix it? You don't fix it by giving money away and letting the problem come to the fore again, which leads us into the whole thing going on with Iran right now.
Yeah.
So what do? We were going to talk about that real brief.
Yeah, we talked about that in the car.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so you're
Our
damn
options are so few,
few.
and there are no good options.
None. So, if you bomb the place, like you said, terrorists might come in and get the physical material and try and extract it, and now you have a terrorist problem with all sorts of enriched uranium. Um, if you do nothing and you let the people in charge stay in charge, you're just going to have this rodeo all over again
Right.
in the very near future. So,
And the problem
wow.
that we have, Mike, is that the United States of America does not have clean hands.
No, we
Remember
don't.
when we went to Libya and said, "Hey, look, give up all your nuclear aspirations,
Mhm.
and we will make sure nothing bad happens."
Right.
And then what did we do? We foisted upon the nation of Libya the Arab Spring.
Spring.
Remember? I
Hmm.
mean, we paid for it.
Yep.
We gave them the weapons, and that's why the guy in Benghazi, the ambassador in Benghazi, was killed because
Right.
he was funneling weapons to the Arab Spring
So the Arab
guys.
Spring rice, right?
And so the point is that we gave a promise to Gaddafi in Libya. We then didn't follow through on our promise. So can the Iranians trust what the Americans say? Now I could argue that they could trust Donald Trump, but they weren't able to trust, Hillary Clinton, or the Clinton government in the past. But that doesn't do it because the guy who's elected after Donald Trump may be another Clinton. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, our foreign policy is almost schizophrenic from the way it changes from one administration to the next. But the point I'm trying to make is that will any national figure in the Middle East, looking at what happened in Libya, will they trust America to keep her word again?
You can't because, like you said, our government changes and the foreign policy changes every 4 to 8 years, and sentiment changes over time as well. So yeah, I can't. And I have often said when I hear, "Oh my God, the Russians, the Chinese, you name the country, are interfering with our elections," I just go, "Well, we do that all over the world. How do I know? Oh, it's not like I didn't participate in that kind of messaging. I mean, I wasn't in on the messaging, but I was part of the unit that did it.
Delivered it.
You know, I mean, we restored Aristide to power down in Haiti, you know, in the 1990s. I was there. We overthrew Saddam Hussein. And, you know, I mean, you saw what a mess that made. And then the rise of ISIS because of that, and the problems we had in Syria and Lebanon, and just everywhere we've gone. We made a mess. And thankfully, at least right now, Trump is not going to make the mistake of trying to go for regime change in the sense that we're going to try to impose a Western government in a country that has no desire, even on their peaceful side, they have no desire to be Western. Not like us anyway. They might want a representative republic of some sort or a parliament, but you know they certainly don't want they don't want the Western ideals. They want to keep their own identity. Do you blame them? I mean, do you blame them? No, we don't want people coming here and changing us. We're complaining about the Muslims right now. They got so many of them, Ilhan Omar and all the rest of the crazies that you know are bringing their culture to this country, which goes back to your Mexican flag thing. It's like holy Hannah. You know, if you came from Mexico and you came to America because you wanted American freedom, what the hell are you raising the Mexican flag for? Didn't you just leave that to come here because you thought it was better? It's just it doesn't make
I get a
sense.
kick out of all the people that are leaving California and New York and they're moving to Texas and Tennessee and
Florida,
Florida and all those places. And the first thing they do is when they get there is they vote for Democrats,
right? Right.
which are only going to reintroduce policies that they hated in the states that they left. And it's almost a self-defeating, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
Hey, I hated it where I was, so I'm going somewhere where it's free. Oh, by the way, now I'm going to change it to the same place that I left.
Uh huh.
So, anyways, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mike. I think what we have to do though is that we have to do a couple of things. One, we have to pay attention to the truth. Two, we can't let people who do things, whatever their thought process, whatever their reason for doing it, we can't let them get away with things that are bad for our society. And if you want to profess that you stand for the righteousness of individual rights, then you have to stand for individual rights on both sides of the aisle. You know, otherwise, your your motivation for doing that would be questioned. You know,
Yeah.
I just saw a news article recently where the Democratic National Committee can't figure out why people are not donating money to the Democratic Party today.
Yeah.
And I can tell you why they're not donating money to the Democratic Party today. Because the Democratic Party wants to have men participate in women's sports. The Democratic Party wants to have illegal immigrants have more rights than American citizens. Because the Democratic Party goes to Colombia to stand beside the guy who's a known murderer and sex trafficker because he's just a Maryland dad. And they won't do anything for that grandmother who was arrested and sat in jail for 3 months without even scheduling a trial because she happened to be in the Capitol on January 6th. The world is a messed up place, and what we need to do is we need to fix it. We need to stand for righteousness and to eliminate that is unrighteous in our everyday lives, and more importantly, in our news media and our political environment.
Yeah. I say to a lot of people on the left, and this goes for the people on the right too. You promote a particular position, whatever that thing is, and a lot of these things can be ideologically supported very easily, but then ask you to put your money behind it. There comes the rub.
Yeah.
Okay, you promote this. Well, now, how much of your tax money are you willing to put towards this? And again, to me, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate any foreigners, whether they came here illegally or not. I know they broke the law, and I agree with people on the right that say that they broke the law to get here in the first place. But again, I've been to these countries and I see the crap that they live in. I think a lot of people with high morals in this country, put into the same circumstances, might consider breaking the law themselves to
Yes.
get out of that hell. But by letting them come here, one of the things we're doing, which is a shame, to have to say we are giving them a relief valve so that the changes are not affected in their country because all the people flee instead of fighting. Remember fight or flight?
Yep.
So, you have to stay and fight. And of course, nobody wants to fight if they don't have to. They don't want to die for their cause. But sadly, that's what happened throughout our history here. We died for our cause. Our ancestors did. And our fellow veterans, we kept dying for the cause to keep us free, to keep us strong. And we usually died for people that we didn't know.
Yep.
You know, that's all I have to say.
Well, I guess I'm not sure if we ever finished the topic we started with, Mike,
Doesn't
but
matter.
it sounded like we talked about a lot of good things.
Yeah.
And I guess we should say at this time, Mac and Mike
Out.
out.